Thursday, February 11th, 2021. Tutoring after school today. Northside tells me to urge you to keep your cameras on. So I have done that, but it doesn't really matter to me. You're going to either pay attention or not. It's always up to you. We will read and focus how moral dilemma influences plot and theme, and think about how desires, anxieties, and behaviors of characters add to a literary work's meaning. And, just thinking about how people respond, and our discussion question about why are people so interested in moral dilemmas. Somebody said, I think in this class, that it shows who they are, who their character is by the choices they make. And that's a big part of why we read and understand these kind of stories. So it's important to have that in mind. And of course, today is a good day, even though Carvajal's sleep deprived and a little crazier than usual. So let's go ahead and do our positive affirmations and tell ourselves how to think, be positive on purpose. Please say them with me, either out loud or in your head. What are you? I am strong, confident, and successful. Yes, we are. And how do you feel about getting work done? I love getting work done. Yes, I do. Yes, we do. And how do you feel about schoolwork? The harder I work, the stronger I become. And it's so true. We have no idea how strong we could really be unless we learn how to work through it, whatever it is. And a little Carvajal comedy. What did Spartacus say? The old movie Spartacus. He was the guy fighting in the Roman Colosseum. What did Spartacus say when a lion ate his wife? Nothing. He was gladiator. Get it? Lion. See, I thought that was pretty appropriate. With the story we're reading today, lions. What's up with these lions? I thought it was just a dimensional film, right? And lions are big, strong animals, no doubt about it. But this is just really dumb. Happy Thursday. Okay, so let's get to our work, because today is a good day, and we are good people. So our common formative assessment, and I want us to look at these questions first, so we'll have them in our minds as we read. And I had shared the reading kind of like I had before, where you can just look at it, you can't write on it, but I switched it up so you can each have your own copy, and then you can highlight stuff that stand out to you. So, of course, everybody's going to get their own copy of this. A formative one, the Velt. Minimum word count is 400 words. And of course, it's already 100. It's already 100 words. So really, you only have to write 289. There's 4 questions. What is a conflict the characters face in the story? And it's interesting to think about. There's different ways to look at it, right? Are they conflicting with the kids? Are they conflicting with technology? Are they conflicting with their morals? It's for you to answer. There's not one right answer to this, right? This is another one of those, well, what do you think? What's your opinion? And just, of course, remember, complete sentences. The conflict the characters face is, and then tell us what you think. What complications do the characters face? What causes or drives this conflict? What's going on in the story? What do you think? And a lot of these you can kind of answer already, even though it's not to the climax yet, right? We're still in the rising action. And then close reading. Does your character face a difficult choice or moral dilemma? You can definitely use something from this reading today to find that. Find a part of the text that shows your character struggling with difficult choices or a moral dilemma. And then you copy and paste that in. And then, then I'm going to switch this. I'm going to put on there, before y'all open it, does not count towards your word count. Carvajal is so mean. Because I'll have somebody find a 300-word quote. Woo, I'm done. I'm a good person. Let me highlight that. Okay, and here's the big thing, the big question, right? This is the important one that you want to write the most. Notice how that's 40 points. This is 30 points, 20, 10. So what happens a lot of times is kids write a lot on the first one for 10 points. They write a lot on the second one for 20 points. And it's like, I'm tired, I'm just going to write a little here and a little there. Well, this one you just find a quote, right? But this is the one where you definitely want to write and explain. It's 40 points, so make the most of it. So, for your reading test, how does your character, or the protagonist, respond to their dilemma? What do they do? How do they respond to the problem that they're facing? And we're going to see that in today's reading. What does their reaction tell you about their values, beliefs, and motives? What are they asking here? What do you think? And whatever you think is probably right, right? What are you, like we said, how they respond shows us who they are, right? So, how, with the way the father, the parents respond to their problem, what does that tell you about the kind of people they are? And of course, that's kind of the same problems we were talking about yesterday, right? That people are having raising kids these days. So write a paragraph explaining your answer. Be sure and include, let me highlight for y'all that too. Be sure and include evidence from the text. And yeah, so that's a big part of that there, okay? So let's look over these questions one more time. What is the conflict the characters face in the story? What complications do the characters face? What causes or drives this conflict? What's causing this problem that they have? And once again, depending on what you focus on, right, is gonna tell you what the problems are. Does your character face a difficult choice? Find a part that shows it. You can just copy and paste there. And here's the big question. How does your character respond to the dilemma, right? That's part one. And then what does their reaction tell you about the kind of person they are? Explain, right? Be sure and include evidence from the text. So as we're reading, and you see something that goes, ooh, 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 that's showing their moral dilemma. Let me highlight that real quick. Okay, now we'll keep reading. And you're able to do that so you don't have to come back later and go, where was it, where was it, where was it, where was it, where was it? Does that make sense? So I'd like you to open up your own copy. I'm going to keep reading it here on the screen like this, but open up your own copy so you will have it and read along with me. And if something shows the conflict or how the parents respond to the conflict, you can highlight it, you can go back later and not have to hunt for it. If you don't feel like reading today, good, suffer. You're a good person just like I am, and we're gonna do the work we need to do so we can be successful. But this is a fun story. I think y'all are gonna enjoy it. All right, so let's continue reading. If you remember, Dad locked the playroom, and they found on the floor his old wallet that has been chewed. What the hell? Why is your wallet there? I don't know. And that's where we're going to pick up, right? The Velt, Part 2 by Ray Bradbury. In the middle of the night, he was still awake, and he knew his wife was awake. Do you think Wendy changed it? She said at last in the dark room. Of course. Made it from a veld into a forest and put Rima there instead of lions? Yes. Why? I don't know, but it's staying locked until I find out. How did your wallet get there? I don't know anything, he said, except I'm beginning to be sorry we bought that room for the children. If children are neurotic at all, a room like that, it's supposed to help them work off their neuroses in a healthy way. I'm starting to wonder. He stared at the ceiling. We've given the children everything they ever wanted. Is this our reward? Secrecy? Disobedience? Who was it said, children's are carpet. They should be stepped on occasionally. We've never lifted a hand. They're insufferable, let's admit it. They come and go when they like. They treat us as if we were offspring. They're spoiled, and we're spoiled. They've been acting funny ever since you forbade them to take the rocket to New York a few months ago. They're not old enough to do that, I explained. Nevertheless, I've noticed they've been decidedly cool toward us since then. I think I'll have David McLean come tomorrow morning to have a look at Africa. But it's not Africa now. It's Green Mansion's country in Rima. I have a feeling it'll be Africa again before then. A moment later, they heard the screams. Two screams. Two people screaming from downstairs, and then a roar of lions. Wendy and Peter aren't in their rooms, said his wife. He lay in his bed with his beating heart. No, he said, they've broken into the nursery. Those screams, they sound familiar. Do they? Yes, awfully. And although their beds tried very hard, the adults couldn't be rocked to sleep for another hour. A smell of cats was in the night air. Father, said Peter. Yes. Peter looked at his shoes. He never looked at his father any more, nor at his mother. You aren't going to lock up the nursery for good, are you? That all depends. On what? Snapped Peter. On you and your sister. If you intersperse this Africa with a little variety, oh, Sweden perhaps, or Denmark or China. I thought we were free to play as we wished. You are, within bounds. What's wrong with Africa, Father? Oh, so now you admit you have been conjuring up Africa, do you? I wouldn't want the nursery locked up, said Peter coldly. Ever. Matter of fact, we're thinking of turning the whole house off for about a month. Live sort of a carefree, one-for-all existence. That sounds dreadful. I would have to tie my own shoes instead of letting the shoe tire do it. And brush my own teeth. And comb my hair. And give myself a bath. It would be fun for a change, don't you think? No, it would be horrid. I don't like it when you took out the picture painter last month. That's because I wanted you to learn to paint all by yourself, son. I don't want to do anything but look and listen and smell. What else is there to do? All right, go play in Africa. Will you shut off the house sometime soon? We're considering it. I don't think you'd better consider it anymore, Father. I won't have any threats from my son. Very well. And Peter strolled off to the nursery. Am I on time? Said David McLean. Breakfast? Asked George Hadley. Thanks, had some. What's the trouble? David, you're a psychologist. I should hope so. Well then, have a look at our nursery. You saw it a year ago when you dropped by. Did you notice anything peculiar about it then? Can't say I did. The usual violences, a tendency toward a slight paranoia here or there, usually in children because they feel persecuted by parents constantly, but oh, really nothing. They walked down the hall. I locked the nursery up, explained the father, and the children broke back into it during the night. I let them stay so they could form the patterns for you to see. There was such terrible screaming from the nursery. There it is, said George Hadley. See what you make of it. They walked in on the children without rapping. The screams had faded. The lions were feeding. Run outside a moment, children, said George Hadley. No, don't change the mental combination. Leave the walls as they are. Get. With the children gone, the two men stood studying the lions clustered at a distance, eating with great relish whatever it was they had caught. I wish I knew what it was, said George Hadley. Sometimes I can almost see. Do you think if I brought high-powered binoculars here and... David McLean laughed dryly. Hardly. He turned to study all four walls. How long has this been going on? A little over a month. It certainly doesn't feel good. I want facts, not feelings. My dear George, a psychologist never saw a fact in his life. He only hears about feelings, vague things. This doesn't feel good, I tell you. Trust my hunches and my instincts. I have a nose for something bad. This is very bad. My advice to you is to have the whole damn room torn down and your children brought to me every day during the next year for treatment. Is it that bad? I'm afraid so. One of the original uses of these nurseries was so that we could study the patterns left on the walls by the child's mind, study at our leisure, and help the child. In this case, however, the room has become a channel toward destructive thoughts instead of a release away from them. Didn't you sense this before? I sensed only that you had spoiled your children more than most, and now you're letting them down in some way. What way? I wouldn't let them go to New York. What else? I've taken a few machines from the house and threatened them a month ago with closing up the nursery unless they did their homework. I did close it for a few days to show I meant business. Aha! Does that mean anything? Everything. Where before they had a Santa Claus, now they have a Scrooge. Children prefer Santas. You've let this room and this house replace you and your wife and your children's affections. This room is their mother and father, far more important in their lives than their real parents. And now you come along and want to shut it off. No wonder there's hatred here. You can feel it coming out of the sky. Feel that sun, George. You'll have to change your life. Like too many others, you've built it around creature comforts. Why, you'd starve tomorrow if something went wrong in your kitchen. You wouldn't know how to tap an egg. Nevertheless, turn everything off. Start new. It'll take time, but we'll make good children out of bad in a year. Wait and see. But won't the shock be too much for the children, shutting the room up abruptly for good? I don't want them going any deeper into this, that's all. The lions were finished with their red feast. The lions were standing on the edge of the clearing watching the two men. Now I'm feeling persecuted, said McLean. Let's get out of here. I never have cared for these darn rooms. Make me nervous. The lions look real, don't they? Said George Hadley. I don't suppose there's any way. What? That they could become real? Not that I know. Some flaw in the machinery? A tampering or something? No. They went to the door. I don't imagine the room will like being turned off, said the father. Nothing ever likes to die, even a room. I wonder if it hates me for wanting to switch it off. Paranoia is thick here today, said David McLean. You can follow it like a spore. Hello. He bent and picked up a bloody scarf. This yours? No. George Hadley's face was rigid. It belongs to Lydia. They went to the fuse box together and threw the switch that killed the nursery. The two children were in hysterics. They screamed and pranced and threw things. They yelled and sobbed and swore and jumped at the furniture. You can't do that to the nursery! You can't! Now, children. The children flung themselves on a couch, weeping. George, said Lydia Hadley, turn on the nursery. Just for a few moments. You can't be so abrupt. No, you can't be so cruel. Lydia, it's off, and it stays off, and the whole house dies as of here and now. The more I see of the mess we put ourselves in, the more it sickens me. We've been contemplating our mechanical electronic navels for too long. My goodness, how we need to breathe honest air. And he marched about the house, turning off the voice clocks, the stoves, the heaters, the shoe shiners, the shoe lacers, the body scrubbers and swabbers and massagers, and every other machine he could put his hand to. The house was full of dead machines, it seemed. It felt like a mechanical cemetery, so silent, none of the humming hidden energy of machines waiting to function at the tap of a button. Don't let them do it, wailed Peter at the ceiling, as if he was talking to the house, the nursery. Don't let Father kill everything. He turned to his father. Oh, I hate you. Insults won't get you anywhere. I wish you were dead. We were, for a long while. Now we're going to really start living. Instead of being handled and massaged, we're going to live. Wendy was still crying, and Peter joined her again. Just a moment, just another moment in the nursery, they wailed. Oh, George, said the wife, it can't hurt. All right, if they'll just shut up. 1 minute, mind you, and then off forever. Daddy, 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 sang the children, smiling with wet faces. And then we're going on vacation. David McLean is coming back in half an hour to help us move out and get to the airport. I'm going to dress. You turn the nursery on for a minute, Lydia. Just a minute, mind you. And the three of them went babbling off, while he let himself be vacuumed upstairs through the air flue and set about dressing himself. A minute later, Lydia appeared. I'll be glad when we get away, she sighed. Did you leave them in the nursery? I wanted to dress too. Oh, that horrid Africa. What can they see in it? Well, in 5 minutes we'll be on our way to Iowa. Lord, how do we ever get in this house? What prompted us to buy a nightmare? Pride? Money? Foolishness? I think we'd better get downstairs before those kids get engrossed with those darn beasts again. Just then, they heard the children calling. Daddy! Mommy! Come quick! Quick! They went downstairs in the air flue and ran down the hall. The children were nowhere in sight. Wendy? Peter? They ran into the nursery. The Veltland was empty save for the lions waiting, looking at them. Peter! Wendy? The door slammed. Wendy! Peter! George Hadley and his wife whirled and ran back to the door. Open the door, cried George Hadley, trying the knob. Why, they locked it from the outside. Peter! He beat at the door. Open up! He heard Peter's voice outside against the door. Don't let them switch off the nursery and the house, he was saying. Mr. and Mrs. George Hadley beat at the door. Now don't be ridiculous, children. It's time to go. Mr. McLean will be here in a minute and then they heard the sounds. The lions, on 3 sides of them, in the yellow veldt grass, padding through the dry straw, rumbling and roaring in their throats, the lions. Mr. Hadley looked at his wife, and they turned and looked back at the beasts, edging slowly forward, crouching, tails stiff. Mr. and Mrs. Hadley screamed, and suddenly they realized why those other screams had sounded familiar. "Well, here I am," said David McLean in the nursery doorway. "Oh, hello." He stared at the two children seated in the center of the open glade, eating a little picnic lunch. Beyond them was the water hole and the yellow veldland. Above was the hot sun. He began to perspire. "Where are your father and mother?" The children looked up and smiled. "Oh, they'll be here directly." "Good. We must get going." At a distance, Mr. McLean saw the lions fighting and clawing, and then quieting down to feed in silence under the shady trees. He squinted at the lions with his hand tipped to his eyes. Now the lions were done feeding. They moved to the water hole to drink. A shadow flicked over Mr. McLean's hot face. Many shadows flickered. The vultures were dropping down the blazing sky. "A cup of tea?" asked Wendy in the silence. What a happy little story. A little cold-blooded, right? No remorse, no connection. Yeah. What kind of bone is that? I don't know. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, formative assessment. What is the conflict? And what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on the technology, the parents and the child? It's up to you, right? What complications do they face, right? Dad wants to shut it down, but what happens? And God darn it, that's the same way with me and my wife. My wife is always the one saying, "Don't be so hard on them." Now, she's the one that screams and pitches a fit. But then I decide this is what we're going to do. And then she's all like, "Oh, but no, you can't take their phone away." I'm like, "Yes, I can." Oh my God, drives me crazy. And then, once again, does your character face a difficult choice or moral dilemma? Copy and paste something good in, but it doesn't count towards your word count. And then, how does the character protagonist respond to their dilemma? How do the parents respond? And what does that say about them, right? What does that tell us about the kind of people that they are and the kind of people that a lot of us are in this 21st century, right? All right, so let's get to work on that. We got about 12 minutes left. Get this done today. Suffer, you're a good person. And message me if you need any help. Hope y'all enjoyed that story. Wasn't that crazy?